is a really great question, and it was one that when I was working with the Episcopal Church, we would address in really different kinds of ways depending on where we were. So if I was in Navajo land, working with the Episcopal Church in Navajo land, that question looked very different than if I was in one of the dioceses in Virginia, for example, that had such a high per capita number of statues honoring the Confederacy. That those issues of reaching out into the community meant something really different depending on who you were talking to. I think one of the things that we do in the United States when we start talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and community engagement is that we have this very naive model of desegregation, right? We don't have a model of inclusivity, we have a model of desegregation, and I call it the rainbow chip cookie model, right? So we're going to have like, oh, we have this great cookie. We're going to invite all of you rainbow chips into our cookie because boy, won't that make a delicious cookie. We're not going to have too many rainbow chips because if we have too many rainbow chips, that's going to destabilize the structure of the cookie and it's going to ruin the taste. And we're going to make sure that those rainbow chips are sort of equidistant from each other and that batter is going to remain that kind of dominant culture light color. So whether you are, a cisgender person talking about, how I want to include my transgender siblings, whether you are coming from a predominantly white organization like the Episcopal Church was, but it's always had many different groups of people of color within it, and you're sort of saying, well, we need to be more diverse. I think you really have to grapple with the why of what inclusion means for you. So in a faith community, we were talking about what does it mean in a Christian community? What does it mean to be the body of Christ together? I don't know what that model is for your community's mission and vision, but grappling with the why is really, really important. Because if all you are looking for is a nice rainbow chip cookie that you can take a picture of at the end, the people who make up those rainbow chips aren't going to stick around for very long. Because the notion is that, we're going to continue to center the dominant culture, but we're going to look like we're doing something different because we've invited different kinds of others to come in and play with us. And so when it comes to community engagement, community relationships, particularly when you're working with diverse others, it is so, so important to recognize that you are coming from an asset-based model where you have an asset that you want to offer and partner with others. They also have assets that you need and will benefit from. A lot of, particularly in churches, when they do what they call outreach, it's like those people out there and we're going to do something for them, which is usually doing something to them as opposed to doing something with diverse others with whom you are sharing community and space and love and heart and passion and all of those things. So relationships really begin that. I mean, you can't do anything without relationships, and you can't get to relationships if you're kind of centering your own agenda and your own sort of dominant culture, whatever that might be. We all have places where we are part of a dominant culture and where we are not part of a dominant culture. So in your particular context, thinking about when you're thinking about developing these relationships, developing honest, authentic, sincere, sustainable community partnerships and relationships, what is the why? And is it an exploitative why? So many people, everybody, every corporation, every nonprofit, everybody's looking for DEI professionals right now. And usually the first thing that they say is, we want somebody with a passion for DEI. Well, how about somebody with a skill set for DEI? And so you see these position descriptions and you see that people just started thinking about this like after George Floyd got killed. So for those of us who've been in the trenches in this work for a really long time, we're thinking like, well, first of all, where have you been? And why do you get to still be a gatekeeper of how we're going to talk about this? Where you're saying passion is the most important thing as opposed to real skill sets.